In today's video, we will be doing a deep dive into the Street Demon trait. What are the units? What are their abilities? Do they have any CC in their kits? How do you itemize them, position them, and more? But before we do that, just a friendly reminder that Project Mentor, the #1 personal training program, when it comes to TFT, signups are still open. They close on the 26th though, so they're closing very, very soon. I have a short on my YouTube channel if you want to go check it out that explains what exactly is Project Mentor, how does it actually help you improve, and that is all explained in 50 seconds. So if you want to go check that out, learn more about the program, I highly encourage you to go check it out. And also, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you subscribe and like the video because we are trying to surpass Sub-Zero Arc in subscribers this set. That is our ultimate goal to set as a content creator. But with that out of the way, let's go over and talk about Street Demons, the actual trait. So first off, what exactly even is Street Demon? What is the trait? Well, the trait itself is basically KDA from set 10, if you remember that one, where you have a bunch of different patterns that you could have for your board, and if you put a Street Demon unit onto those hexes, they gain stats, and not only just stats, they actually gain double the stats. Any unit that's not a Street Demon but is still on the hex will gain the original stats that are listed on there as well. You might also notice that some of these hexes look a bit different. Those are what are known as signature hexes, where those Street Demon bonuses are going to gain an additional 50% more before these bonuses are doubled. So if you're going to have, I think, 3 to 4 different signature hexes. I don't know if they have a concrete number just yet, but you'll have 3. I believe it's 4, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you can put your really important ones in those hexes to get even more bonuses and stats. The next, these are the units in the trait, and let's briefly and very quickly go over each of them. Depending on how sweaty you have been this entire set, you might already have a very strong idea as to what all the units are, but for a lot of folks, because the set's still on PvE, it's very likely that you don't really know what's going on. So let's quickly go over it. The 1-cost unit is a Dr. Mundo. He is a Street Demon Bruiser Slayer. Basically, his passive gives him 30% more max HP from all sources, and when he casts this spell, he heals just a little bit of HP, then deals some bonus damage that scales off HP and 80 to his current target. The other 1-cost is Zyra as well, who is a very similar print to set 13 Zyra. She is also a Street Demon Techie. Techie is like the Sorks of the set. Basically, she has single target CC built into her kit, so when she casts her spell, she will send a vine towards her current target and stun them for 1 second. She will also like dish out a little extra like mini vine, and then that'll hit like another target for a little bit of bonus damage. Echo is the 2-cost and the only 2-cost of the Street Demon vertical. He is a Street Demon Strategist. Strategist is back as well this set. The trait itself giving your team an entire team-wide buff, damage amp, and I believe it is durability. Yeah, that's correct, durability. And strategists actually get triple, so they actually get quite a lot. His ability itself is really straightforward. He just heals for a little bit, and then he just deals some bonus magic damage to his current target. Very similar to Dr. Mundo. 3 costs of this vertical include Jinx and actually Rengar as well, who I just realized is not on this board, but I'll throw him in there as well. Let's go over Jinx first. Jinx is a Street Demon Marksman. Basically, her ability fires chomper rockets, so like kind of like Arcane, but basically fire rockets at random enemies within 2 hexes of her current target. And then these rockets actually ramp over time, so you actually want her to be casting a lot because every time she casts, she adds an additional rocket to her cast. So she starts at 5 and it keeps increasing, so next time she casts 6 rockets, and then 7, and then 8, and then 9, and then so on. So she's definitely ramps and prefers longer fights. Rengar is a Street Demon Executioner. So for his ability, he actually has a little bit of built-in healing in his kit as well. But basically, the way that his ability works is that he will then pounce onto the lowest health enemy within 2 hexes and then dealing X amount of physical damage. He'll strike 2 times, and then each one does like a little bit of bonus damage, I believe. And then every time he casts though, and this is the kicker, he will increase his leap range by 1 hex. So he'll go from 2 hex jump, do his little like daggy dag, like stabby stab thing. And then he'll cast again, and now it's a 3 hex jump. And then it's a 4 hex jump on the next cast, and so on. You get the idea. At a certain point, this guy's pouncing around the whole board, and his range becomes the whole board. So he's really fun and interesting to watch if you can really get him going. 4 costs of the set, there are 2. The main tank, we'll go over her first, is Nico, also a strategist. So yes, this vertical has a built-in synergy of 2 strategists. Her ability has a little bit of CC built in. Basically, she will gain a shield, and then it will create this zone around her. And then it'll like basically like trigger like 3 times. It'll go like pop, pop, pop. And then on that 3rd pop, there's a little bit of AoE chill, just reducing the attack speed of everybody that got hit by it by about 20%. You kind of want her a bit more in the middle of the board because you want to make sure you're getting that value out of that the little ability of hers, if you will. The next 4-cost inside of this vertical is Brand, and Brand is the only 4-cost carry inside of this vertical, which means it is an AP-centric vertical, but we'll talk a bit more about that later. But he is a magic caster, and just like how Strategist is a synergy inside of this vertical, so is Techie, shared with Zyra and Brand. His ability is interesting. Basically, it's AoE damage, but he'll throw a paint bomb at the largest group of enemies that's within 5 hexes, and then it'll do like a 1 hex radius of damage, but it'll still also damage the nearest 4 enemies for a little bonus damage. So it's a little 2-piecer in there. Very straightforward, to be completely honest, but it does feel a little awkward because it doesn't feel like any of his abilities exactly from League of Legends, but I'm sure you'll get the idea very soon enough. And then finally, the 5-cost of the vertical is none other than Samira, who is an AMP unit. Basically, the way that her ability works is that she just dashes into like a group of enemies, and then she is unstoppable. Can't be touched by CC, so don't build QSS on her. And she will just go pow, 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 in like a whole AoE like circle thingamabob. And it also shreds as well, actually. So she actually has like a built-in Last Whisper almost. So you actually don't want to build Last Whisper on this unit either. It just deals a bunch of damage, and then she'll like dash back to where she was previously, and then continue shooting from the back until she decides to dash in again and start shooting around in a circle going crazy. So really cool and fun thing to watch. And also, she does have a little bit of Omnivamp built into her kit as well, which is super cool. Not a lot though, I will say, but there is a little bit in there if you want to feel reassured that your Samira will not die as soon as she goes in and casts. But really cool unit to talk about. But anyways, now that we've gone over all of the units and their abilities, let's talk about the general itemization do's and don'ts. Now, in this line, I will say that we've already talked about like QSS and QSS and Last Whisper are not great on Samira, but there's a lot of other things to take note as well. So first, when it comes to your anti-heal, you kind of want to lean Morello if you can. Nothing wrong with Sunfire per se, but as you can tell from the vertical tree already, there's not like an incredible amount of frontline here. Obviously you're going to pair with some other units as well, but generically speaking, you kind of want like real, not to say Sunfire isn't a real tank item, it's good, but you definitely want like the D-Claws, the Bramble Vests, the Redemptions, the Warmogs, items like those. So if you can help it, I think Morello on Brand is probably going to be your best bet. So it's just so much better compared to Sunfire Cape in this specific line. I think Brand is a great holder because he just does AoE and touches so many units with his ability. And red buff doesn't make a lot of sense because nobody can spread it too well. You can still use it if you have to, but I think Morello is definitely like the preferred item if you can in terms of anti-heal. If you need MR Shred, kind of the same philosophy. Again, if you can, you really want to try to do like 3 whole tank items on your main tanks. So I think Zyro holding Shiv is probably one of the best things you can do when it comes to finding MR Shred for your board. Finally, Last Whisper, if you have it and you want to slam it and you need it for tempo, I think it's fine. I think Jinx is going to almost always be your Last Whisper holder if necessary. Again, Evan Shroud, fine item, but same philosophy as before. And again, it's redundant on Samira, so you wouldn't really want to play it on top of Samira. I'll also note this as well. You might notice something pretty interesting here, and it's that one, there's a very good component that is really good in this line. And I don't know, maybe you want to pause the video and try to figure out what component is really good in this line. I'll give you a second. I mean, you have the ability to pause the video. I mean, if you pause the video, you pause the video. And if you didn't want to quiz yourself, then okay, whatever. But the answer is Crit Glove. Crit Glove is really good in this line because Samira really likes to have like Hodge IE because she'll like cast in, do a bunch of damage. She wants to heal a little bit as well. I don't think the built-in Omnivamp is quite enough to really feel secure that she just won't die when she casts in. So I think Hodge IE is definitely going to be like close to BIS, if not already BIS. If you have like an augment like Piercing Lotus that causes your abilities to automatically crit, then this could actually even become a guard breaker instead. And I think that's actually like true BIS Samira. I think Gold Collector as well is amazing. If you find a Gold Collector, I think it's a Samira hard force. Now, obviously you might be going, well, 5 cost. Forcing a 5 cost is stupid as fucking. I hear you, but I think that if I saw that I have a collector and I can tempo with the Jinx, my game plan is Samira 1, Hodge IE, and then she's gonna go crazy. She's gonna go absolutely ballistic. It's one of, I think she's easily, I don't think it's even close. She's easily the best collector holder across the whole set. As well, I want to mention this, that Guard Breaker also, it fits into Brand's kit very well. In case you don't go with the Morello, you end up going with like a Sunfire Cape, JG Shojin Guard Breaker is one of the best itemizations that Brand can have. So that's also very well within your wheelhouse. And again, Samira can use Guard Breaker as well, Jinx can use it as well. And I want to talk a little bit about Jinx. the game plan, especially when it comes to playing around Street Demons, is that Jinx is an incredible item holder. And I say that because she can hold both brand items and she can hold Samira items. She can kind of hold both. Now, obviously, if you have like a Rabadon Slam, I mean, you're not going to throw that onto Jinx, but things like Shojin, Jinx actually really loves Shojin. So Shojin's really great. She can hold onto it. She can hold onto your guard breakers for obvious reason. She can hold the IE because her spells can crit and do more damage. She can even hold Ginsu's. I want to talk a little bit about Ginsu's. We'll talk about later, but Hodge as well can also fit onto her just fine. And if you really need to, JG is fine as well. Like that way her auto or her abilities can still crit. That's honestly fine as well. She can hold so many items that flex between the two that, quite honestly speaking, you have so many options when it comes to item holding and utilizing Jinx to get you by. Plus, Jinx, just generically speaking, as a 3 cost, at least at the time of recording this video, she feels amazing to hold as like your mid-game carry. So definitely a great unit to be utilizing in order to transition into your level 8 and level 9 and so on boards. I want to talk about Ginsu's a little bit, and this kind of goes into like the flex sort of aspect of Street Demon and why I think it's really a cool vertical this set. Jinx, because she can hold so many different items, you can kind of just tempo slam whatever, right? And what's really cool about this specific trait web, and as you can kind of tell from the bottom here, these are all units that you could potentially just flex into your board on your level 8 roll down. So generically speaking, I think the game plan of this comp is that you play a sort of tempo / I'm going to play Street Demon, preserve my HP throughout the early and mid game, and then on your level 8 roll down, you are super flexible and open to your carry, to your tanks, and you have so many different options. Again, when it comes to Shojin, Guardbreaker, IE, Hodge, whatever, you can really go with units like the Samira if you find the Samira 1. You can go with Vex if you really want to. You can even do Xayah if you don't want to do the Aphelios line. You can just do Xayah instead, who's also a marksman. And she's fantastic. You can use her as your marksman instead in case you don't have a Ginsu, and then you can just do like IE, Guardbreaker, whatever. Shojin, IE, Guardbreaker, that's fine too, and Xayah can item hold and then eventually transfer it onto Samira if necessary. I think Ginsu's is actually a fine slam. The reason I say so is because if you do Ginsu's instead, you could use Aphelios as an AD item holder instead in case you miss on like the Samira. But you could also use Urgot. I think Urgot is such a fantastic unit. If you've been watching any of the top players playing right now in the PvE cycle, you'll notice a lot of players are capping around Urgot or trying to tempo around this Urgot unit very early on like 4-2, 4-5. And the reason being is because this Urgot unit actually has the ability to cap your composition even higher than it normally could because of the way his ability works. It's very similar to Dredge, if you remember back in set 8. Basically, if he's able to execute an enemy off of his ability, then he'll like drag them in, and then he will quote unquote grind them into parts. And those parts could potentially give loot. That is the big part of his kit that lets you like itemize and cap out much higher. So he also, by the way, loves Ginsu's. So Ginsu's is like fine, but you're gonna have to end up playing around the Aphelios Urgot instead. But if you don't have that Ginsu's, totally fine as well. Xayah is there to save you. In terms of AP lines, Brand has been a bit lackluster throughout the PvE so far. So realistically speaking, I actually wouldn't be surprised if you end up throwing these items onto Ziggs instead, who looks like he's gonna be the main sort of AP carry that you'll see in most scenarios. Obviously, we are talking about Street Demon here, but if you have 7 Street Demon and you're carrying a Ziggs, then, you know, maybe you want to tech out a Street Demon. But, you know, if you miss on the brand, you're like brand 1, but you're Ziggs 2, just itemize the Ziggs and start playing into that and lean into that instead. I think there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to playing around the Street Demon line. I think it's fantastic. Yuumi is a unit you're going to almost always find yourself putting on your board at a certain point. The reason being is that she is a strategist AMP unit. Oh, I'm sorry, she's also a Nemo squad, but that doesn't matter too much. I mean, maybe if you're playing on Xayah, but her AMP trait is great because you definitely want at least two AMP on Samira. 5 extra bullets doesn't sound like a lot, but it really does feel like it. You can definitely feel it. So she's fantastic to throw on your board for extra damage and but also the AMP bonus for Samira. So if you're playing Samira on your board, you want Yuumi to pair alongside it. I have Vex in here as well. It's if you like truly miss on every single AP carry and you really need an AP carry. The reason she fits is because she's an executioner which pairs with Rengar, and that's like I'm playing Vex 2 from like 4-2 to 5-1 at most, and then I'm selling it and then I'm looking for my brand or I'm looking for my Ziggs or something to stabilize with instead. So it's an option, but it's like if you roll 2 gold, you have like 90 HP on 4-2, and like you basically have a ticket to 9 and you're using Vex 2 as your ticket to 9, then so be it. But realistically speaking, I think it's very niche scenarios where you're gonna play around the Vex 2 versus Brand versus Ziggs. This is sort of like your true like last resort, but it's there. I just wanted to throw it out there. The front line as well is super flexible. Kabuko is the best bruiser I think that you could tech on to the front line here. Zac can obviously flex in as well. It's really fun to play around Zac with his bloblets. It'll be interesting to see how strong this Zac unit really is once the set goes onto live. I'd be pressed to believe it's ever bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not amazing right on your 4-2. Like, if you need to stabilize immediately on 4-2, it's very likely that because it's a scaling champion, he's not your best bet. If you need, like, immediate stability, Kobuko, Cho'Gath 2 are probably better. Even Garen 1 might potentially be a better option. He's also a very scaling unit, very, very high cap. But, like, if you're, like, 30 HP trying to play around Street Demon, first off, something went wrong. But second of all, that's probably not the way to go. Kobuko, Cho'Gath, they're both bruisers. So these are both like great ways to take them onto your board. Cho'Gath also shares Boombot with Urgot as well. So these are great ways to flex into some level of frontline in case you miss on that Nico too. But you have a bunch of options here and it's super fine. I think Garen itemizing him as a tank is fine. But again, he feels very temporary. I don't think, unless you are capping out super high, I don't think it's like the best option. But you can also just, you know, you can use God of the Net, mod him with Street Demon, and then he gets a bunch of bonus stats as well. So I think that's totally fine. I think if you mod him as a strategist, I think that's actually pretty fire as well. So a lot of options as well with Garen, but my point being, you have a fuck ton of options. You have so many different ways to cap out your board. Just think critically. Do I need more frontline? Do I need more backline? Do I need more damage? What are the carries can I utilize, right? You have so many good ways to play around this line. I love this vertical because I think there's so much skill expression when it comes to the way that you flex around your roll down when it comes to playing around Street Demon. So really, really cool stuff that I genuinely enjoy. Positioning tips wise, there's not too much to really delve into. Jinx should, generically speaking, be on the same side as your opponent's carry, just because of the way that her rockets work. Again, she is trying to shoot 5 random rockets at enemies that are within 2 hexes of her current target. So the closer she is to the enemy carry, the more likely she is to potentially hit the enemy carry. Another thing as well is that Samira does really want to be next to whoever is your secondary carry, because, like, let's say for example Jinx is your secondary carry, like you're not really playing on the brand anymore, but let's say you have a Jinx 2 and a Samira 1 and both of them are 3 items. Basically Jinx is gonna like shoot like a bunch of damage, and then Samira is gonna cast, and then the whole point of Samira is to try to cast, get in there and just clean everything up, bada bada bada, Southern style. So that's the identity of the composition around it. So you don't want to spread your damage like this, and like if Jinx is your carry, right? This is terrible because Samira's gonna lock in. She's like, I can't wait to clean up the board, and then everyone's full HP, and she's like, what the fuck, right? So that's you. You don't want that to happen. So again, just make sure that you're positioning your carries relatively close to one another. So there you go. That's really all there is to the positioning. There isn't, again, too much. Maybe stuff comes out further down the line. Maybe we'll talk about it. But realistically, I think that's kind of where it's at. We can talk a little bit about +1s as well. I think +1s are really great in this line for obvious reason. First, if you hit the +1 on a dummy, you go 9 and you have a second emblem, you found 10 Street Demon. Congratulations, you basically won the game for free. It's very, very similar to Rebels. How if you got the +1 for Rebels, once you hit level 9, you just, you know, you need to find one way to farm an extra emblem, but if you find it, you won the game. Like that's bada bing, bada boom, bingo. You won the game. Congratulations. So, you know, I'm not a fan of it, but it exists. What's nice about the emblem as well is that you actually get to flex very hard around more units, which I think is great. You can put in, I like this Fiddlesticks Urgot little like synergy as well. I think is really nice. Basically, Fiddlesticks and Urgot gives Boombot plus Executioner with the Rengar plus Techie for the brand. A lot of great ways to cap out your board. You can also start teching down at a Street Demon. I think is also really fine. What I've noticed is that, as you can tell, there's 10 units on this board here, and you don't have to follow this to a T by any means. But what I've noticed is that a lot of the time you can start teching down out of the vertical pretty quickly for higher quality units. So instead of playing around like the Cho'Gath, you can, instead of playing around like the Mundo, you could probably drop the Mundo here. You could honestly probably drop even like the Echo, to be honest. You could drop down to 2 strategists and start playing around even like higher capped units, things like your Kabuko, things like, I don't know, like you can drop Fiddlesticks at this point because you're probably not playing around Techie. If you're playing around Urgot, you can play around like anything. You play around legendaries, like Zac, for example, fits perfectly fine into here. You have Yumi in here for strategist AMP, so maybe, yeah, like you get the idea. You have a bunch of different ways to play around it. I'm just freestyling off the bat here just to see like what else is available. But a bunch of cool ways to sort of like play around it as well. So definitely you get to experiment, flex, have a good time with it. I think this line is super dope, super skill expressive. Let's talk about a little bit about variations as well with the carries. First one I'm going to talk about is Jinx reroll. This came up on my radar because of TFT Genius. Shout out to them. TFT Genius, if you don't know, they are an EMEA website hosted by a couple of pros from that scene. So I think they launched it this set. It's very, very new. It's in like a beta state right now. It's available to the public, but I urge you to go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go check out their website. Bit janky, but I still think there's a ton of information, and all the players on there are very talented players. So definitely can find a lot of good information in there. But this came up on my radar because of their composition guide. It's a 6 bruiser Jinx reroll line. On 7, you would just be playing 4 bruisers instead of 6. But it's a very straightforward, just Jinx 3, Mordekaiser 3. I think itemization-wise, you can slam Ginsu's for tempo, but eventually, I actually think Jinx prefers Shojin instead. So, like, Shojin, i.e. Last Whisper, I think would probably be a lot better in terms of itemization. And then the Ginsu's can go on to Aphelios, who can be your secondary carry, which I think sounds perfectly fine. He can hold the red buff, he can hold more Ginsu's, he can hold, like, a Deathblade or extra AD items. I think that is totally chill. So, that's a very straightforward and simple line. The last one we could talk about, I don't think it's very good, but I thought I should throw it out here because there's a chance we'll see this be good at some point in the meta. So this is like a 6 techie variation as like a brand primary carry. Again, I don't really see this ever really being a board. It is just too many poor factors about this line that make me a little hesitant to really give my seal of approval. The first one being that the front line looks janky as shit. Like, it just looks really suspicious with the Viego. That's just not a great quality unit at the moment. Mordekaiser is great. He has a CC. He has CC. Nico has CC. Fiddlesticks has the built-in shred. Like, there's a lot of really good, like, pieces in here. But when you put it together, it's like making a recipe, right? I love vanilla ice cream. I love olive oil. I love rigatoni with like a pesto sauce. But like, if you put that shit all together in a bowl, you have these things that individually sound really great, but like no one's eating olive oil, pesto, rigatoni, vanilla ice cream. That sounds horrid, and it sounds like an Italian grandmother's nightmare. So you're not, like, you understand what I'm saying here? Like, it has the pieces. It's like, it's there, and these things in a vacuum, they sound amazing, but you put them together, and I'm throwing up. It's just disgusting. So that's kind of where I see this line at the moment. So want to throw it out there, but again, that's kind of where I'm standing on that. But anyways, thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, just please make sure to subscribe. Again, we're trying to surpass Sub-Zero Arc in subscribers this set. That is like my #1 content goal this set. So please make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. And again, as a final reminder, Project Mentor signups are open if you want to improve at TFT like never before. But signups close on March 26th. So make sure to sign up if you're interested. And you can find out more information at projectspikehigh.com. Take care, guys, and happy climbing.